5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. International organizations have long been viewed as instruments of global cooperation established to promote peace, security, economic development, and social progress across all nations. However, despite their stated missions of neutrality, inclusivity, and fairness, a critical analysis reveals that many international organizations exhibit a consistent bias in favor of Western countries. This favoritism is not only evident in the decision-making processes and power dynamics but also in the implementation of policies, allocation of resources, and framing of global narratives. The structural design of many international organizations reflects an imbalance that privileges Western countries. From their inception, key institutions were shaped by the geopolitical realities of the time, especially the dominance of Western powers in the post-war era. These founding powers established the rules of engagement, financial contributions, and voting mechanisms that have largely persisted over time. As a result, Western countries often wield disproportionate influence in decision-making processes. In many cases, voting power is directly tied to financial contributions, allowing wealthier Western nations to exert more control than their less affluent counterparts. This structural advantage leads to a situation where policies and priorities align more closely with the interests of Western countries rather than the collective needs of the global community. The leadership of international organizations further reinforces this bias. Key leadership positions are frequently held by individuals from Western countries, whether through formal agreements, traditions, or informal power structures. These leaders often bring with them a worldview shaped by the cultural, political, and economic contexts of their home countries. Consequently, the policies and agendas pursued by these organizations tend to reflect Western values, assumptions, and priorities. While these values may be well-intentioned, they are not always universally applicable or accepted. This results in policies that may seem appropriate from a Western perspective but are often ill-suited or even harmful when applied in other cultural or regional contexts. Another indication of bias is seen in the allocation of financial resources and development assistance. Western countries often have a significant say in determining where and how funds are distributed. This leads to situations where allies of Western countries receive favorable treatment, while those with differing political systems or less strategic importance are sidelined or subjected to stricter conditions. Conditionalities attached to financial aid or loans often reflect Western economic ideologies, such as market liberalization and privatization. These conditions, while beneficial to some economies, have in many cases led to increased inequality, social unrest, and weakened state institutions in recipient countries. Moreover, the imposition of such conditions suggests a lack of respect for local governance, priorities, and developmental models, reinforcing the perception of paternalism. The enforcement of international norms and laws also displays a clear asymmetry. While international organizations are meant to uphold rules and standards equally, enforcement is frequently selective. Countries outside the Western sphere are more likely to face punitive actions, sanctions, or public condemnation, even when their violations are comparable to or less severe than those committed by Western nations. This double standard undermines the credibility of international institutions and fosters resentment among non-Western countries. It suggests that international law is not applied impartially, but rather serves as a tool for advancing the geopolitical interests of a select group of powerful states. Media representation and narrative framing further contribute to the perception of bias. International organizations often rely on global media channels, many of which are based in and influenced by Western countries. As a result, the way events and issues are portrayed tends to align with Western viewpoints. This influences public opinion and policy discourse within international bodies. For example, conflicts or crises in non-Western regions are often reported with an emphasis on dysfunction, violence, or failure, whereas similar situations in Western countries may be framed as anomalies or exceptions. This selective portrayal reinforces stereotypes and marginalizes non-Western perspectives, diminishing the agency of countries from the global South. There is also a notable disparity in how knowledge and expertise are valued within international organizations. Academic and professional credentials from Western institutions are often considered superior, while local knowledge and indigenous perspectives are frequently overlooked or undervalued. This creates a knowledge hierarchy where Western experts are seen as more legitimate or authoritative, even when discussing contexts with which they may have limited familiarity. Such practices not only marginalize voices from the global South but also lead to policies that lack contextual relevance and effectiveness. In matters of conflict resolution and peacekeeping, international organizations have demonstrated inconsistent approaches that reflect political biases. Interventions are often more vigorous or prompt when Western interests are at stake. In contrast, conflicts in regions with little strategic importance to Western powers may receive delayed or insufficient responses. This inconsistency undermines the principle of equal protection under international law and contributes to a sense of neglect among affected populations. Additionally, the presence of peacekeeping forces has at times been accompanied by reports of misconduct, which are not always addressed with transparency or accountability, especially when the perpetrators are affiliated with powerful member states. Efforts to reform international organizations have faced significant resistance, particularly from those who benefit from the status quo. Proposals to democratize decision-making processes, increase representation from underrepresented regions, or revise funding mechanisms are often delayed or diluted. This reluctance to change indicates a deeper reluctance among Western countries to cede power or accept a more equitable distribution of influence. Without genuine reform, international organizations risk losing legitimacy and support from the very countries they are meant to serve. The perceived and actual biases of international organizations have real-world consequences. They erode trust, reduce cooperation, and hinder the effectiveness of global initiatives. Countries that feel marginalized or unfairly treated are less likely to engage constructively with international institutions. This fragmentation weakens collective action on issues such as climate change, public health, and global security, which require broad-based cooperation and mutual respect. Furthermore, the dominance of Western perspectives prevents the emergence of alternative approaches that may offer more suitable solutions for complex global challenges. International organizations perform operations which are not free from bias. Stop.